Share some wisdom about how to, like, if you were coaching, let's just say I came aboard on your team and I was your apprentice and you were like, hey, I need you to be my mini me and clone me so I can scale my business. But I had reservations about presenting. What are the things that you would teach me to help me get comfortable?
You got to, oh, this is so cliche, but you got to get uncomfortable. You just got to do it. I think being a wholesale rep, I didn't have a choice. I'll never forget the first two I did. They were awful. And my heart was beating out of my chest and I was sweating and I was so nervous. And I wasn't presenting solutions. I was just talking through programs, which nobody cared about, right? It was funny on the first one, dead blank stares. I'm looking around the room and I just kind of was like, Sean, you blew it. You totally blew this whole thing. And I just went, does anybody want to hear about 80/20s, 100% financing? Everyone's eyes lit up, right? Oh, yeah, I want to hear about that. And so it was like, oh, okay, now I see what it is. They wanted to hear how they can get people like this is available to everyone, right? So their problem was how do we get people into homes that don't have a down payment? That's when their eyes lit up. So now I didn't know what the problem is because I never took the time to ask. I just started talking. And then I found out, okay, now I know what to talk about the next one because everyone was glazed over. And that's why I start, the one I did last week. I basically am showing, I call it the psychology of real estate. And I'm basically looking at how buyers and sellers are acting in the current market and what their fears are, and showing real estate agents how we overcome those things. So, basically any type of buyer, I want to wait for rates to go down. Okay, let's talk about that. And I go into detail on that. I want to wait for prices to go down. Okay, let's talk about that. We all, if you're in mortgage, you hear people's concerns about the market. Every real estate agent is hearing the same thing. So if you can find ways to help them overcome those objections, you'll win faster and you'll get more attention faster and you'll have more confidence faster. And so I think that's really where it is. So I think the first step is go present, do 10 people. I mean, getting a room of 10 real estate agents to pay attention to you is hard enough. But once you get into the rhythm, I love it. It's so much fun. I love doing presentations. But it wasn't always that way. It was the scariest thing I'd ever done in my life when I was 19 years old.
See, I think that's a super important thing for everyone to hear is that there's this perception that the Barry Habibs and Ryan Grants and whoever else of the world, the Sean Herreros of the world, are just like naturally gifted orators that came out of the womb with a PowerPoint presentation, and a rattle, right? I mean, and they're just like ready to go. And it's all bullshit. I mean, like I have to work hard. Like I'm doing a presentation next week in Park City for our master's program of L360, and it's like a 50-minute presentation, and I've practiced it like 15 times, probably more actually.
Mhm.
And I'm still working through fine tuning it. Like it's work. Like if you want to be a good communicator, you have to take that seriously. We had Barry with us in Austin, Texas in April. And we did a whole half day on presenting. He and I were working with the group. And I think that was one of the huge takeaways that a lot of people had because they didn't realize that Barry works his ass off to
Right.
present. And that's why he's so good at it, you know? So do you use, let's get a little bit more tactical with the
Mhm.
presenting stuff. So want some, I have some comments about what you had said, by the way, about the 80/20 and all that, but I'll get to that in a minute. How do you design, like, do you practice a presentation? Do you design it? Do you use a PowerPoint?
Mhm.
All of that stuff. Like, give us some nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I love having a deck. I love images because I'm a visual learner, so I have to see things to understand them. I have a lot of MBS Highway and a lot of Mortgage Coach graphics in any presentation because I'm the data nerd. So I back that up with what I'm showing. But so like the one I have right now, Diana Olick with CNBC has been the queen of the crash since 2015. She's been saying the market's going to crash. So for the presentation that I have right now, I took a bunch of her articles and put them in the frame from, I forget what year, but it was basically the market's going to crash over and over and over again. Her two most recent were, guess how much equity you have because home prices are going up. And the other one was talking about home values going up as well. And I was like, oh, even the queen of the crash has changed her tune. That's really relevant to what's happening right now because she's the reason, one of the reasons that people were very scared to make a mistake and buy a house. So I want to show that the person who was making you question, or if I'm talking to a real estate agent, if I'm the person who's been making your clients question whether this is a good decision or not, has changed your tune, right? So, well, if Diana Olick says values are going up and everyone has all this equity, maybe I should buy now. So I really try to get into the emotions and psychology that are behind it, and then I'll find graphics that are applicable to it. Another one I have, this is probably my favorite thing, and I've talked about this when I used to coach, or not coach, when mortgage advisors were my clients and I was helping them do more business, I would present on their behalf to real estate offices. And my grandparents told me that they remember when a candy bar cost a nickel. And that's always stuck with me, right? Because they would only say that because look how expensive a candy bar is today. Well, these same grandparents had bought a home in Cupertino, Silicon Valley, right? One of the most expensive places in the country, for $40,000 in 1975, right? Brand new home, 3-bed, 2-bath for $40,000 in 1975. And all we talk about is how lucky they were. Well, these are the same people that told me a candy bar was a nickel. If I bought a bunch of Butterfingers in 1975 and sold them today, I would make a 4,000% return on my investment because they're $2 now, right? Same candy bar, nothing's changed. That's just inflation. So I like to show that inflation is not a negative for housing. It's one of the biggest drivers of appreciation, right? And I think a lot of us can relate to that conversation. That home's now worth $3 million. But I try to put things like that in there, a little bit of story. Should I say I don't like to sell, but I'll call it story selling. I just want,
now the truth comes out.
but it's like, just give people information they can relate to.
Yeah.
That makes it more understandable. And I remember seeing you and Barry speak at the first mastermind I went to, and I was just like, I want to be those guys one day. And Barry helped me. Barry's like, no, don't have a bunch of words. If you're just reading your slides, you're not presenting, right? And he's like, the images should give value to the people, and they should remind you what you wanted to talk about. And that's it. And I've just taken that to heart. And again, trial and error, just keep going.